What's up, guys? This is Jimmy. This is my Discord. I just wanted to start a little Q&A, get the message out here that I have a little Discord here that I started. We got about 40-ish members. And yeah, I have a little Q&A section over here, and I wanted to address some of these questions, and I'm going to leave this open and try to make these videos periodically, because a lot of my projects are, they're just going to take a bit. I got to get a lot of footage for them, and it's hard finding the time right now with school and work. So instead of having you guys wait forever, might as well, have something put out in the meantime. So yeah, join the Discord. Come hang out with us. Put the link in the description. We have a little Iron Man going on, which I was just over. I'll put that up again. We have like a kind of a community Iron Man thing we're doing. We're all playing Shadow Dragon. I'm starting mine soon, and we got all these people, all these wonderful people doing some crazy things. There's a guy with like there's Donlot with a 14 speed Ogma in like chapter 7. Which is pretty nice. Yeah, some people are doing some crazy strats. Some people are pretty new to the game, and and they just keep trying, and it's really fun. We got like a 5-speed Drog in chapter 1. That's really nice. That's gonna be great for reclassing. So yeah, if you haven't already guessed, this is kind of the nature of me talking. Is I'm just gonna be going on tangents and like talking about anything, whatever. So these Q&As are a good way for me to kind of figure out how I do things. Because as you guys know, I don't really do any kind of commentary, like ever. So I'm not really good at it. So it's something I need like practice in. But that's alright. This is a good way for me to kind of see the direction I generally go. Because I just want to be myself when I do this stuff. So, commentary is not really my thing, but, maybe it can become my thing over time. But yeah, join in. We're just getting started. If you want to join us, there's a great way to like connect with the other people in the Discord. Just, post pictures of how your Iron Man's doing. You can do whatever difficulty, whatever rule set. Someone or Donlot in here is doing like a no UI. He's disabling like all text basically. So he's basically playing on just feel alone. And there's a picture here somewhere with that, and that's pretty crazy. That's something I've played enough times that I wonder how far I could get with that. But it's yeah, here, like stuff like this. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, yeah, as you can see, there's a lot of deaths going on there. But yeah, like right here, like you just can't see anything. So this would be interesting. I remember a lot of the benchmarks for Shadow Dragon, but I don't know how many. I don't know how many I have memorized. But yeah, I'd love to see a lot more of you guys join, and I'll post the Discord link on every new video, because I know the one in my community tab is invalid. Okay, so by the way, I didn't prepare these. So for this question, I do not have one prepared. I'm sorry, Donlot, I failed you. But I don't know how I could formulate that really quickly, so I'll cut you a compromise. I'll pick like either my favorite or one that comes to mind from each of the games. I'll skip FE1 through 3. And I'll instead spend more time talking about like the remakes and stuff. I might do 1 or 2 units for each of the games, but yeah, I'll just I'll probably do a few, like whatever comes to mind. But yeah, I love. There's a lot of units I like, and I'm really passionate about talking about. So let's see. I guess we'll start with FE4 then. One of my favorite units to use. Like, yeah, he asked how much I like them, so I'm not doing like viability. I'm not taking any of that into account, or like how good they are, but just units that I really like to use. So I love using Azel in Gen 1. I love setting up a path and a route to have Azel get a lot of kills, and I love making him useful. So something I have in the backlog I have this list of my own projects, stuff that I want to do, not like the what do they call, the requests, but just stuff I want to do. And Azel is one of them. And not only that, but FE4 in general, and just how it's really, in my experience, especially, yeah, well, I guess, Gen 2 is kind of the same, but Gen 2 just doesn't, like, Gen 2 kind of gets you right into the big maps, but, like, for Gen 1 and beyond, like, I think I've noticed it doesn't, like, FE4 doesn't have to be really, really slow. I think if anything, it's not that FE4's maps are so massive that they take forever to traverse. It's the engine that kind of eats your time. It's the fact, the camera moves so slow. There's that delay between every enemy unit, moving. Your deployment limit is endless, so you just have so many units. So, like I did it one time. So like on chapter 5, I forget, I counted it, but like if you're moving towards the goal, you get there in like 4 turns or something. Like it's like 5 turns. You can get to the places you need to be really quickly, but it takes like planning. It takes proper planning, because if you're not thinking ahead and you're sending like your infantry to go up to what's his name, Macbeth in chapter 2, like like you're probably gonna find yourself disappointed, right? Like, so what I'm getting at in this kind of tangent is like one of the things I really like about FE4 is, foresight is extremely rewarding in that game, and making plans, you can have a fun time using any infantry. I know, even Arden, I know that's kind of a meme. Like Arden is definitely a complete and total meme, but with proper planning, you can have infantry unit get where they need to be at a good time. And you just like you have like less freedom with them if you want to go at a good pace and have them be able to get the rewards and kill the right bosses, save villages. But yeah, just have your cavalry go and get all the side objectives and stuff, and you can get your infantry where they need to be really quickly, and it's actually pretty enjoyable when you plan that stuff out. It depends on the person, but I really like Azel for that reason. Sorry I took so long to get through that, but that's the pattern you guys are gonna see. So for FE5, let's see. Well, okay, so I have a strong. Many of you probably won't like this, but I actually have a really strong connection with Brighton, because it was my first playthrough of that game was something. I struggled. I went in basically completely blind. I didn't get 8x. There's a lot of stuff I didn't get, and I got to the dandelion level, and it just it was the end of me. But we did it. we'll say like, what was it, chapter 10? Yeah, chapter 10, and that's, for those of you who don't remember, it's the chapter with a ton of ballistas, all like spread out across the map. It's like where Fred and Olwen kind of show up for a little bit and then run away. That map was pretty intimidating, because, you know, I've played before then, and this was, I think I first played FE5 right when Project Exile came out. Like right when that came out was my first time playing the game. But you know, I've dealt with games of ballistas before, and I thought these were going to be FE4 ballistas, but they were not. Those guys do damage, and I was like really intimidated by it, and I didn't know what I didn't know what to do. But that whole playthrough, Brighton was king, so I didn't know how to do Manster right. I did it kind of a slow way, and I thought Brighton was the way to go because of the Wrath, and you know, I guess I got lucky and didn't have him miss too many times, because yeah, he was, for my first playthrough, he's who carried me. With my limited knowledge of, you know, what the best strats to do, not capture, I didn't know about capture bait, I didn't think about capture baiting and all that stuff, but Brighton, he got 6 points of defense in Manster. Or I think more than that. I think he's like base 5? Yeah, he was at 12 defense. I remember that. We got out of Manster, and maybe it was a mount dismount thing, I don't remember, but when he was mounted up and we got out of Manster, he had 12 defense. Which is pretty impressive at that point in the game. I don't remember what Dulls and Space Defense is, but yeah, Brighton was killing it. And he was the first unit I promoted. I got him to like level 13 or something, and I promoted him. And so he was carrying me. I know that it still wasn't probably, like, Finn probably would have been a better choice, but you know, for my first playthrough, I was having a really good time with Brighton. And he carried me in chapter 10. I could move him up and he could take the ballistas. You know, I could actually get through. I had him brave axe one of the thieves to save the village, because I got lucky with the coin flips, and for chapter 10 that is. And yeah, he just made an impression on me, and I kept using him. He became like a really iconic unit for me in that army. And so I've always had like a really kind of special connection with Brighton. Really solid unit. Well, that's what I thought at the time. You know, I understand now. I've played FE5 so many times now, and I understand that he kind of leaves a lot to be desired. He's really, like, his stat line is, like, really kind of underwhelming, but, you know, given the situation he's in, you know, he's really useful right when you get him, and kind of falls off a bit, but I really respect him. I always have kind of a connection to that unit because of that. Another one from FE5 is Misha. Really doesn't have any right to, you know, she's not a good unit, but I had a lot of fun screwing around with A-rank swords and, you know, another flyer. And so that's just a unit I end up using a lot. I've killed the final boss with her. I guess that's not saying that much, because it's he's not exactly the hardest guy to kill, but still. Yeah, I've done a lot. I think it was my second playthrough. I got like 2 move level ups on Misha. So I think that helped a lot with that. Okay, FE6. First we'll say Cecilia. I love using Cecilia. There's one time where this is before I even made a YouTube channel, long before I made the channel, in one of my Iron Mans, I decked her out with all kinds of stat boosters. Great unit. I understand that her combat can be a little like underwhelming, but you know, I was a big fan of what she was able to do for me in like Iron Mans and stuff. Because I'm not gonna go into that, but I've played FE6 a lot, and most of that playtime is Iron Mans, because during the big Iron Man craze, which I guess, I don't know if it's probably still going on, but during the big Iron Man craze, I was spamming that game, that and Shadow Dragon, and even New Mystery. I was just Iron Manning like crazy. It just became like it became like a daily thing. Like after work, I'd relax and hang out with friends, do what I want, and then before bed I'd spend like an hour or two on my DS or Game Boy, whatever, just in my bed continuing an Iron Man. It became like a daily ritual for me to play these Iron Mans, and I did FE6 a lot. And the reason why I kept Iron Manning FE6 was because it's a mix of kind of the absolute chaos that is the early game of FE6, and the fact that I guess I'm just not as good at FE6 as other games, but I don't know. I don't think anyone can be good at Chapter 7 in an Iron Man. Hard mode Chapter 7, I don't think anyone can be good at that map in an Iron Man. But that's why I loved FE6 so much, because no matter how much I thought I improved my skills at that game, there was so much chaos, so many things that could happen that could really put me in a unique situation. Whereas like for Shadow Dragon, I kind of have to force myself in those situations, because I have played that game, I think 30 plus times now. I am an addict to that game. It's my favorite game, but I've Iron Manned it so many times that I need to add like a new rule set to it, because it's just, I've done it so many times that I always just default to the same strategy that just works. That just works every time. Because the game is like, there's less of an element of chaos in it now. So I need to like either just screw around more or add a new crazy rule set on top of it, which I have a few ideas for. But enough of that tangent. My point with the FE6 thing is, I just got a new appreciation for so many units. I had a good time with a lot of them. I have had a good time with Douglas. Igren. And yeah, honestly, just a lot of the pre-promotes. A lot of the pre-promotes can be pretty fun. Even Garrett's kind of a funny unit. It's like, he's got like 50 hit, but like 60 crit with the Killer Axe. So you're like flipping 2 coins, and if those coins align, if you get 2 heads, you're just one shot in something. Really funny unit, but yeah. So mainly those few, especially Cecilia, but I have basically pre-promotes. The pre-promotes in FE6 I have a big respect for. They're really fun. They're really good filler units, and I think they're well designed for the difficulty. They're some of my favorite like pre-promotes in the series. They're not insanely busted. I feel like in some cases, as much as I like FE7, some cases when you give me things like Pent and Harken, a lot of the times I feel like it kind of feels a little discouraging to spend so much time on, Urk. It never stops me, but it's just something I feel sometimes. But in FE7's defense, you still get Percival in FE6, and Milady might as well be a pre-promote. It's just that she has access to those promotion bonuses from her already hard mode stats that kind of make her really silly, but there's so many like underwhelming, or what people presume is underwhelming pre-promotes who get the job done if you're not having a perfect playthrough. If you're not having a perfect playthrough where your Lance and Alan are top tier, and you just have all these units who are trained up from scratch and have gotten good level ups, no one's dead, like a lot of these pre-promotes are not going to look really appealing to you. But if you allow chaos to kind of enter your run, you know, the chaos that is an Iron Man or any kind of other ridiculous challenge, then I honestly feel like they're really, FE6 has got, you can do a lot of really fun stuff with it. It just takes patience, because FE6 where nothing goes wrong is a very different game. It's a very different game. You can say that about any Fire Emblem, but yeah, it's a very different game here. Alright, FE7. So I'll be honest. FE7 is probably one of the games I have the least experience with. Last time I played all the way through Hector Hard Mode was like 5 years ago. And it's not that I hate it. I just never like went back to it. You know, I've done Sacred Stones a ton. I've done FE6 an immense amount of times. I just never found myself going back to FE7, which there's a request I'm working on in the game right now. I'm really early into it, but so that's gonna change soon. So I don't really have too much of an answer for that. Besides, I can say Guy. No, I'm not. Never mind. Scratch that. My brain just said the request I'm doing. Yeah, you guys know. You guys saw the request sheet. That's not even a spoiler. Yeah, I'm doing a Guy video, but that's not my favorite unit to use. I'm like confusing myself now. So far I've been a fan of Urk. That's all I can really say. Like, so far in that playthrough, even though it's a video about Guy, I'm using Urk on the side during the making of that, and I'm having a lot of fun doing it. So, that's about all I can say. I'm trying to remember. I know all the units, and I've seen people play through the game a billion times, like draft races and all kinds of stuff. But so I know all the chapters, I know all the units I've played. I know the game, but it's been a long time since I've played all the way through it. But right now, I have to give it to Urk. It's really fun having him, you know, finding ways to like set him up for kills. And I've been getting the necessary speed level ups as well. So we'll go with that. FE8. Ooh, it's kind of a hard one for me. It's like I like screwing around with a lot of units. Natasha, of course, but we're gonna have to give it to Garcia. I know, I'm so predictable. The Axe Fighter gets the award, but I always use Garcia. I have never not used Garcia when I played the game. I just always do. I actually, a lot of you guys are probably gonna get mad about this, but I actually almost never use Ross. I just don't feel like it, you know. That's kind of how I play. I don't really use a lot of units that I don't use units who are good. I don't use them because they are really good, unless they're units like Milady or Har, who, you know, without using them, you know what I mean, you get the picture. But like, I don't use units because they are good. I use them if I like them or not, if I think they're cool, and then I try to make them as good and efficient as possible with that. Right, like, like take Board, and we're gonna talk about Board in a bit, but the Hammerman video and the Board experience video, that's not how I usually use Board. How I use Board is the using Board efficiently video. I love finding like the most efficient ways to like use units that I like, that I just think are cool. And that's kind of how I play generally. That's how I do it. I find that very enjoyable. But yeah, that's just that's kind of how I do it in that game too. So and FE8. I don't use Ross. I know Ross, like, if you're playing, like, Ross is actually pretty solid. You know, depending on the pace you're playing at. We're not talking about, I don't talk about LTC and super efficient stuff a lot, but I know Ross is pretty solid. If you give him a few levels. And yeah, that's kind of what I have to say. I just love Garcia. I always use him, and I almost never use Ross, even though a lot of people like Ross better than Garcia. But yeah, I've done Warrior Garcia. I've done Nidhogg Garcia. It's a shame I didn't have a channel when I did that, because I would have totally recorded that. But Nidhogg Garcia is so funny. I've done Hero Garcia, of course. I've done it all. I just use them every time. Nothing much to say. Path of Radiance. Oh boy. The thing with Path of Radiance is you get so much bonus EXP, but I don't like just force feeding one unit bonus EXP. It feels to me like it's a game mechanic, so I'm not gonna say it's cheap, but it feels like a unit who didn't earn anything just gets jacked. You know what I mean? Like, I love coming up with routes and planning that allows you to use allows a like subpar unit to do really good. And so a lot of like the growth units, a lot of the unpromoted growth units, I enjoy using without jacking them with bonus EXP. And it's like sometimes I just let it pile up. Sometimes I have so much bonus EXP that could be used. It could be making the game easier for me, but I just don't use it for that reason. It's a really weird thing I do, but it's just kind of how I feel when I play the game. Is, you know, using, right, like having Soren kill things without using bonus EXP feels more satisfying to me. Having Ileana do the same, or even like Nephany, or you name it. Because of that, I actually enjoy some of the pre-promotes in that game. In my most recent playthrough, I have to say Tornado was really fun. In my recent playthrough, when I was just steamrolling through the game, just using who I wanted for fun, I had like the emulator set to like 160% speed or something, and the Dolphin, and I decided to use Tornado, and this is just hard mode. This wasn't Maniac. It was for the Enna thing. I just had Tornado doing a bunch of stuff, and he was such a fun unit. I just really liked him. I thought he was like well designed as a unit. The problem is he's never going to see like any use, because you're just going to bonus EXP and a growth unit up to that point, and it's another one of those things where, you know, does good. Like Tornado is one of the pre-promotes that actually like does good. Lucia on hard mode is really weird, and Bastion's, you know, Bastion's Bastion. But it's just one of those things. I don't know. I'm not going to go on a big tangent about that, but Tornado I actually really like. I actually really had such a good time using him, and I wanted to try out a lot of the other pre-promotes as well, like Largo and all that stuff. But yeah, Tornado is definitely my favorite in Path of Radiance. As for Radiant Dawn, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. I could just go with the easy answer and say Ileana, because I had so much fun making that Ileana thing, but I don't think that's entirely the case. I really like Nolan. That's also kind of a boring answer, because you guys know me. I might just skip the Axe Bros in these answers, because you know what I mean. It's just one of those things. But I really like using Sigrid. I know Tanith has got better potential. Tanith has got like Tanith's bases are like slightly lower, but her growths are better. So she's probably, their bases are close enough that I'd say Tanith is probably a better unit, but I actually really enjoy using Sigrun, and I almost always use her. So we're gonna say that it's definitely Sigrun. I use her every playthrough. Shout outs to Shinon. Shinon is a ridiculously mind-boggling sniper. Like, you look at his defense stats and it's just really funny. Like, his bulk for an archer class is hilarious to me, and so I just love using him. And he's really good. And he's that character, so you know, it's Shinon. He's hilarious. He's really stupid, but he's someone who you kind of love to hate him. And he's actually pretty interesting too. He's an interesting character, you know, despite being a complete scumbag. But yeah, let's move on. Do I even need to say it for Shadow Dragon? I don't know. What do you think? Do I need to say it? It's boring. I'm not gonna explain why. I'm not gonna explain why. You guys all know. Just watch any of the like 3 videos I've made on him. Particularly the using board efficiently one, because that's what gave me such a connection to him. I felt like I was bringing something new to the table when I found that. When I like planned that route and how exactly to use him, even though there's so many people who've done stuff with board. I know even in Karma's Discord, there's someone who did some crazy stuff with board. I think it was Rad, but I'm definitely not like I'm not saying I'm super original in that regard, but you know, there's a reason. You know, I felt like I had so much fun with this air quote discovery. Probably not really a discovery, but that I just, you know, became really connected with him, and that's why he's the mascot of the channel, you know. And he kind of represents my favorite units and my content kind of as a whole, is units that are not like completely garbage. Like there's people in this community who kind of represent, you know, bad, you know, like the really bad units, like the units that are considered some of the worst units ever. Right, like Donlot over here, he's got like the Chad Violent going on, like that's Violent, you know, that's a part of his channel's identity. And you got like 5 points, for example, is like Mathis, you know, and Violent, I guess, like, you know, and Gordon, right? And those are the right, those are kind of their identities. Kind of this channel's identity is more of like units like board. Like, of course, I've been requested to do some really awful units, but kind of my favorite units are units that aren't necessarily that awful, not as bad, not in the tier that those guys are considered to be, but units that are like just forgotten units. All my favorites are people that no one really thinks about. No, like, people don't really talk about them. Right, like Board's not the worst unit in the game. It's Shadow Dragon, not by any stretch of the imagination. But he's not good either. And that's kind of my point, right? Like, no one thinks about Board. No one really talks about Enna, right? And that's, you know, and she's one of my favorite units. And I should have said that. Yeah, okay, and FE9 and 10 Enna is on that list. Even I forgot about her, and she's one of my favorite units. It's cause she's barely there. You get her for so little time in each of the games. But when she's there, I do really love using her. But yeah, that's the tangent I wanted to go into instead of talking about why I like Board, because you guys know. You guys already know that. For Shadow Dragon, I also really like Pala. Pala's an insane unit in that game, even though you get her later. It's like people argue it's like the worst version of Pala, but she's still really good in that game. She's got some really good potential. And like her bulk and strength potential oftentimes makes her a better late game candidate than Sheeta or Kata, however you want to say it. It just depends on how you play. It depends on how you play Shadow Dragon. If you're like playing the map straight, then you're gonna find Sheeta is still a great unit, but has trouble hitting like certain stat marks. So it just depends. And Draco Knight caps are not gonna save. Draco Knight speed caps are not gonna save her. So when it comes to like dragons of the late game, it's not happening. Unless you can afford like a plus 10 dragon pike, which sometimes is barely enough, by the way. That's how buff those dragons are late game on hard 5. You need stats and a lot of gold to forge like effective like anti-dragon weapons that are strong enough to kill them. They're really buff. They're really sauce, and they're really fast too. But yeah. Shoutouts to Pala. FE12, oh boy. Am I gonna say board again? Yes I am. But I just want to throw out there that board lost a point of speed. Board went from 7 to 6 in a game where enemies have higher stats. So I'm still super glad you get board really early in that game, and he still kind of has the same utility. I don't even know if you want to call it utility. He still has that same uniqueness about him, that he's the only person who can use hammers at base for a big chunk of the game. Like, you can get people to C rank long before then. Like, you'll have, if you have Chris go fighter, you're gonna exit the prologue with C. So with C axes probably, or at least close to it. So, but you know, like in Shadow Dragon, board comes in with hammer, and the only person who can use hammers at base, the next person you get is Minerva in chapter 10. So board kind of has that uniqueness about him, whereas like Bars can hit C rank pretty quickly, but you gotta use him. You gotta have him fighting like every turn that he can. Even if he misses, even if he's just throwing a hand axe, you gotta get that weapon rank up. Whereas like, and then Borg has like the silver axe in chapter 7 he can get. Right, you know the drill. I'm not gonna explain everything, but yeah, FE12 is Borg. But I'm happy they gave him 30% speed growth, which is the highest I think he's ever had, the highest he ever gets. Yeah, well, he's not in FE3 book 2, so he can't use the shard. So yeah, that's like the highest it's ever gonna be, is 30%. But they didn't have to take a point of speed off him, man. I guess like there's no weight anymore, but it makes me sad. It makes me sad on higher difficulties seeing Armor Knights always have more speed than him. The Armor Knights aren't doubling him, but the Armor Knights have like 7 or 8 speed, I think, and that it's pretty troll. But yeah, FE12. There's some other units I like to use in FE12 as well, but it's just one of those things. I don't know. Board is always a staple on my team, all the time. Yeah. Awakening. We're just gonna say vague. We're gonna say vague. Shout out to Gregor. I don't play Awakening that often, but I usually like using one of those two units. And Shershay, I don't know how you say it, but I almost always use her as well. Just because her join chapter, literally just because of her join chapter, just getting a unit who functions at base, who's not a complete juggernaut of a unit. There's like a mix of Armor Knights, and I usually have her fly right and try to, fight some of those Armor Knights with the hammer, and she's just fun on that map because she's not brain dead. Like the thing with Awakening is usually by that point you have a brain dead unit. Sometime and possibly way earlier, because this is Awakening. You can make really quickly turn someone into a turn your brain off unit and just have them walk forward, and you're just destroying everything. But like, she is like not Cherish is not invincible, and you can it feels like she was designed around that chapter well. So literally just because of that, I have a good time using her just because of that chapter. But yeah, shout outs to them. What's next? Fates. Gunter. In Conquest, it's definitely Gunter. Gunter, or whatever. But I love him. Love the guy. So much fun in Conquest. He's a really, really, really well designed unit, and he lets you, like, the more you understand about Fate's mechanics, the more you're gonna like Gunter, because he just goes in. He just well, that's not really any way to describe him, but his stats are like, for when he joins, you know, he's slow, but he's got like decent strength and decent defense, and so you can like make use of him, and his growths are bad, so he's not like for kind of Fate's beginners, he's like a really weird mid-game Jagan who kind of falls off really quickly. But he's got like weaponry. He can use effective weaponry and stuff, which is nice. But the really cool thing about Gunter is the fact that his EXP gain is, despite what level he is, his EXP gain is way higher. And he has like this weird level 30 cap. He's like kind of similar to Jacob and Felicia that way. But he's a bit different. The point is, he is a means to getting level 15, those level 15 skills that your units are not going to see till really late in the game, most likely. You know, even take a unit that, you know, everyone likes Camilla. Okay, well, everyone likes Camilla as a unit, I guess. Like, Camilla's a really good unit. We'll leave it at that. But she, right, like, even she has an accelerated EXP gain for her level. You're not getting trample on her till way later in the game, till late in the game, and it's such a good skill, right? In Conquest, it's basically free damage in 90% of, or not, yeah, like 90% of the time, it's free damage. Gunter, I forget, isn't he like base level 12 or something, and you can get him level ups really easy? Gunter can get that very fast. Really, really quickly. And you can get him, you can screw around with him, you can get him Paladin skills if you want, you can get him Wyvern Lord skills, you can get him, you know, he's going to get his Great Knight skills, you can get him those Malignite skills, you can get him that +2 strength from, you know, Wyvern Rider, you can get him the Trample and all this stuff. You know, and he only has one marriage option, but given that he can marry Corrin, if you really want to do stuff like that, you can get him even more skills. You can get him like life and death stuff. I know, I watched, if you ever have the time, watch Karma's Conquest Negative Growths playthrough. It's insane, and it is on the hardest difficulty. And it just has it, like, we're talking like Vantage, Life and Death, Gunter, and then in Negative Growths, Gunter's a unit you want to be using, because his stats are like his stat, like, yeah, I mean, you guys, anyone who's seen a Gunter level up knows it's consistently really bad. But yeah, he is such a fun unit in that game. I know I used him in Revelation, but I still, Revelation's Gunter makes me so sad. Like how pathetic his bases are in that game. Like, and they gave him no supports, and they gave him, like, so they took away that fun. You can still reclass him and get that stuff early, but his base level is way lower. So he still gets it way earlier than everyone, but it takes a long time. Like, forgetting, I definitely prefer Conquest Gunter, even though it comes way later. I like Revelations Gunter, just makes me sad. But yeah, that's kind of my thing. Birthright, I could just say Roderick, the Lancer, but honestly, I have a lot of fun using Saizo. Yeah, I always use him. He's really fun, and just really good, frankly. For the less boring one, in that Roderick one, I actually had a lot of fun using Setsuna. I'm not particularly a fan of Setsuna generally, but I always found her. I found a way to keep her relevant and useful, you know, and like I found ways to get her to the proper like strength benchmarks. It was such a hard race because her strength is usually pretty lacking, but I kept finding ways, whether tonics or certain pair-ups, or you know, just whatever I could do, even like silver weapons. And I know a lot of you, I know everyone hates silver weapons in Fates, but I actually don't. I think with proper planning, you can make good use of silver weapons. Like you just know, you can just know with positioning and downtime and doing some calculations. Sometimes the little bit of strength you lose for the next time, you'll still have enough to kill somebody. And then the turn after that, you'll have a little bit of downtime of moving units where you'll replenish your stats. So I think silver weapons are bad if you just brainlessly play, but yeah, I had a lot of fun working within Setsuna's limitations. And yeah, so I'd have to say it goes to those two units. Saizo for just, you know, being really strong and fun, and Setsuna for being a unit who's really limited in what she can do, but the race to find ways to make her be useful and to kill enemies was a lot of fun. So for Shadows of Valentia, yeah, for SOV, that's a tough one. Atlas is a good shout out because he's just such a funny unit to me. You just get this villager, and you know he's already ready to promote, and the game just says do what you want with him. Here we just gave you a unit who has good HP, really good attack, and then everything, literally everything else is like 5 or below. All of his other stats are hilariously bad. It's so funny. He's just meat and strength, or meat and attack, like. And you know, since there's no magic stat in that game, it's just attack stat. Even you could like make him a mage and he'd hit hard, right? So it's really funny to me how Atlas works. You can kind of make him what you want. I know a lot of people, like, there's not like, he's not as versatile as some people would make it sound, because you know, I know a lot of people tried making him a Cavalier just because, you know, you don't get a Cavalier that route until really late in the game. And don't ever do that, by the way. Unless you really want to screw around. Cavalier Atlas is not something you want to see. Consider, with the terrain, like, oftentimes, considering it, you can consider it a blessing that you don't get a Cavalier until the point you do in that game. We'll just say that. But I like, it's really fun, especially as an archer. You can get the killer bow, you know, Hunter's Volley, SOV, all that stuff. You can completely ignore his speed problem in the player phase, and he just does so much damage. Atlas is such a fun unit, like. So yeah, I have a lot of respect for him. I also like using Clive a lot. I was on the Clive train from the beginning. You know, everyone, right when the game launched. I know the game's meta and what people talk about has changed drastically than when it launched, but everyone used to talk about how. Everyone used to, you know, talk about how good Matilda was and, you know, how bad Clive was, but I know a lot of that's changed now with figuring out, you know, the benchmarks and stuff, but Atlas, or not Atlas, sorry, Clive, I was on board the Clive train from the very beginning. So, shout outs to Clive. I also like Luthier, but we're gonna move on now. 3 houses. Ooh. 3 houses. We're gonna say Ingrid and Annette. I know, I'm a Blue Lions guy. That was the first one I played, and played the other ones after, and I do actually like, I do still enjoy 3 houses. I haven't played it recently, and the reason for that is I still want to enjoy 3 houses. I just gotta come up with like unique ways to play, because it does kind of drain me a bit, and I'm not trying to get on the train of hate against 3 houses. You know, I'm sure you guys are all tired of hearing about, you know, the monastery and all that stuff, but yeah, I need to come back to it soon. My favorite character in that game is Gilbert, so because of that I always like end up using him, and I do think he's kind of an interesting unit, but I've had a lot of fun screwing around with Ingrid and Annette. I've done so many different ridiculous classes for Ingrid, it's hilarious, and because I put a lot of thought and theory crafting into her as well, because my very first playthrough, not kidding, she was base strength the entire game. The only strength she got through the entirety of the game, until she got like 2 points of strength through level ups like really late, was the only time she got strength was through like the promotions and stuff and like class spaces. So by the end of the game, in the final chapter, I still have the save file for this too. She had 11 strength. 11 strength, and she had been trained basically throughout the whole game. She had to use the Lewin to do anything. Literally anything. And I was so sad and disappointed. Like she was so strength, and then, you know, I started thinking, okay, well, we'll go into fighter, you know, have her get the strength +2 and the extra growth, and, you know, we did that, and then, you know, that allowed me to put her through the Wyvern Lord line instead of, you know, having her go into axes and with the extra might that axes have. And so I took her through that. Like, she still became a peg, but took her through the Wyvern line instead of purely the Falcon line. Because my first playthrough, I just did lances, so she went like soldier, and you know, you guys have all used Ingrid, so yeah. But yeah, those are my favorites. Annette's really fun too. You can do a lot of crazy stuff with Annette, and yeah, of course Gilbert, my favorite character in the game. But yeah, that's it for that question. Sorry that was so long. We're just gonna, here, we'll put the Japanese goblin. That's my mark of it being done. No context. These guys are gonna see this and say, what is this guy doing? But yeah, we'll try to go through the other questions. I'm thankful for that question because I got to talk about the units I like from the games and stuff. But any of you who see this, after this point now, well, let's try not to do kind of questions like that, because it's not a problem with you guys. I'm the problem here. I just rant too much, and that's basically an entire video's length that I just did for that one question. So for now on, we'll do like more simple ones. Marp asks, will you play Project Ember or play Awakening game and find some other unit to solo it with? And the answer is maybe sometime for Project Ember. I've actually never played it because I've spent too much time with FE6. It's just one of those things. I've played, if I ever feel like, I just never felt like playing Project Ember, so I don't really have an opinion on it, because I love going back to FE6 and like discovering new things about it. So there's not much I can really say about that. At some point I probably will, but I just don't play ROM hacks at all. It's as simple as that. I mean, there's probably fun. They're probably really fun. You know, maybe I'm missing out, but I still, even though I played the series so much, I still always feel like there's something for me to go back to in the series. There's something for me to find. So, I like. Yeah, I don't know. I can't tell you about Project Ember. Awakening, probably only for requests. I almost never play Awakening on my own time. Sort of for the reasons I talked about a little bit earlier. I respect the game. I don't hate it. I don't think I really hate any Fire Emblem game these days. But if I feel like playing Fire Emblem, it's not a game that Awakening is not a game that immediately comes to mind for me. And yeah, I hope you guys don't get offended by that. I don't hate the game, but it's just not like the way it's designed is not like what I seek, and that doesn't mean it's bad. You know what I mean? It just means I prefer other kinds of stuff. And that's all there is to it. So yeah, I hope you guys don't feel attacked at all by that. I know sometimes when people start ripping on your favorite games, you know, it can get annoying and people kind of get upset, but that's just how it is. So as for Awakening, maybe at some point someone, like, as some request down the line, I'll probably do that, but probably most likely not in my own time at all. What do you think is the most overrated unit? That's a tough one. I'm trying to think, because we're kind of at a point where many of the overrated units have been kind of knocked off their pedestals. Maybe a little too hard. Like, I've heard some major backlash on, like, over the past few years. The amount of backlash on, like, FE10 Jill has been insane. You know, there was a time when Olwen used to be overrated, and now I think people are a little too hard on her nowadays. Not everyone, but certain people. But you know, Olwen's over. Like, the Olwen used to be overrated. You know, like Shadows of Valentia Pala used to be overrated. Right? There's a lot of units who were kind of in those spots that have kind of already been knocked down a peg. But so I don't know. I'm trying to think. I guess we'll go with kind of an easy one of something I'm way more knowledgeable about is Sheeta and Shadow Dragon. Like, because it just depends on what you play. If people are going to tell you that no matter, in every playthrough, no matter the circumstance, she's going to be your best unit from start to finish, and that's not really how it works. Like in the first 3 chapters, she is anything but your best unit. She's actually, like, in chapter 1 there's a really good strat. It's used in the LTC and it's really good for casual play as well. What you can do with her is have her bait away a bunch of pirates in the very first chapter. But she's really, like, not that. But other than that, she basically is just fighting against the weapons triangle and gets, like, one shot by all the bosses, and yeah, she's got a rough time. And but then you know the rest, you know. Then the enemy composition consists of, like, in most of the time, the enemies on the map and almost all the bosses are weak to the wing spear, and she allows you with almost no investment to, you know, one shot these units with very little money with forges and stuff, and she can kill all the bosses, so you have the ability to warp skip basically every chapter. Almost, yeah. Like 80% of the bosses are like in the Cavalier or Armor Knight line. So yeah. But if you're playing the map straight, you'll find her not as useful. She's still like a really, really, really good unit. and has really, really powerful effective weaponry. And, you know, gets to be in a flyer class from the very beginning of the game, being a female and stuff. Really, really, she has a speed growth that makes her competitive, that gives her the ability to basically consistently double enemies throughout the course of the game, which is incredibly rare for Shadow Dragon, because, you know, speed growths are generally low, and those who have good speed growths by that game's standards, our bases are at the point where it's hard for them to double without massive investment, because even though the enemy's speed doesn't scale that high, like they're at base, they're pretty, like, they're still pretty hard to compete with. So yeah, and I'm saying all these good things about her, but like people say, like the amount you hear about her is insane. Like, she basically just wins the game for you. She's incredibly brain dead. You know, no. Like, there's, like, yeah, she has effective weaponry, but there are a lot of units that she's gonna have a hard time doubling, or not doubling. She's gonna have a hard time killing. There are, like, yeah, there's Cavaliers and Armor Knights all over the map, but there's no chapter in this game where that I can even think of. I don't think there's a single chapter in this game that has only Cavaliers and Armor Knights. Actually, there is one. It's the what's it called? It's the bridge map. Yeah, the bridge map actually only consists of that. That's like the exception. And maybe the Sable Order, or no, maybe the Camus map too. The Camus map, or whatever, the Camus, whatever you want to call them. So there's like 2 maps. Other than that, like, there's like no, like, in the early game, there's like, they consist of a majority of the enemy density, but there's other units too. You know, you got archers, snipers. The snipers, by the way, in Shadow Dragon are really annoying. They're always put in these really these really good positions. And I don't know, if any of you guys have Iron Man Shadow Dragon, you've probably had an annoyance with one of those snipers before. But despite that, like, sometimes there's mercenaries. There's a few mercenaries spread throughout the game. There's Manicheets. Like, there's a few things that she's not killing if you're playing straight. And, you know, they'll tell you Sheeta is, like, recruiting half the cast. And, you know, she recruits, like, 4 units. That is not half the cast. I'm sorry. Like, okay, she recruits 5, but, like, she recruits 4 units exclusively, because Lorenz can also be recruited by Marth, not just Sheeta. But she recruits, like, 4 people exclusively, which is less than Marth does, by the way. Marth recruits more people than that, and most people just join you regardless. So no, she does not recruit half the cast, like people say. That's kind of silly. But yeah, Sheeta is. Oh, and like, yeah, her strength and bulk. Like, you know, people will tell you that her weaknesses are just fixed by Dragonite promotion, and to an extent they're right, because her weaknesses is her bulk and her strength, right? She's able to kind of get around that with the use of effective weaponry a lot, and so she can always remain useful. Like, I'm not trying to tell you that Sheeta's bad, but she's not hard. You know, I don't think that's a bad comparison, because I don't think people ever compared her to that. But like, she's not this unstoppable machine of doom. You know what I mean? Like, and as far as like playing maps straight, you know, yeah, if you are warp skipping certain chapters, if you're warp skipping, Sheeta is your best unit in the game. Absolutely. Because then there is no problem in the game that she cannot solve. There's no problem in the game she cannot solve. There's a few bosses that are really annoying, like there's the chapter 9 boss, there's the chapter 17 boss, and the chapter, the chapter 24 boss, you can just like triangle attack that clown. But most of the time, she can just kill the bosses with Wing Spear, and then you warp Mars to the throne, and you're done. But like if you're playing it straight, she her late game potential, it can be kind of rough. So again, it just depends on how you play, but it's like in every playthrough, she's not gonna be the super end-all unit. She doesn't invalidate Minerva. Like I've heard a lot, and you know, a lot of this isn't like, these are individuals, not the community. Like, yeah, Wing Spear allows you to completely dumpster this game, but let me just say that don't let her existence stop you from using other units. So that's all I really want to say about that. What do you think is the most underrated unit? Board. I don't know. There's so many underrated units. I feel, but I just think oftentimes certain units allow you to do stuff. So I'm just gonna like give a quick example because that's the only one on my mind. Like for board, like for Shadow Dragon board specifically, he can take over Wendell's job, right? Like Armor Knights come in pairs in the early game. In most scenarios, you got two Armor Knights. You got the Armor Knight bros coming at you with the Steel Lance, you know, and board doesn't double them because of the weight of the hammer, and he brings them to like 8 HP. Now you can do 8 damage to an Armor Knight with most of your units, because your units either double them, or a unit like Merrick will just hit them for the 0 res. So yeah, they're left with around 8 HP, and most of your units can finish them. Because what usually happened is like Sheeta at base oftentimes because like her HP is really bad, but she has a base defense of 7, which is actually pretty impressive. She can survive usually with like 1 or 2 HP, and she'll either with an unforged Wing Spear will either just like perfectly kill or leave an Armor Knight at like 1 HP. So you usually have Sheeta kill one of the Armor Knights, and usually kind of the flow is you have like Wendell. You have Wendell like double one with his Thunder Tome, and he'll like leave that one at really low HP for one of your units to set up, or for one of your units to kill. So what this allows is so board can walk up, knock one down to like 8 HP, someone else can get the kill, Wendell goes and heals board or whoever, and then Wendell gets to work on his staff rank. That's something I noticed. I thought that was a really underrated thing to have Wendell with C staves, because like Wendell, I know a lot of people like reclassing Wendell, but I usually, unless I'm lacking units for certain jobs, I usually leave Wendell in Sage, and I just have him, you know, do his thing. I just have him do his thing, and he, you know, I have him heal and use getting him to Physic and Warp is just really fun. I usually don't have him warp that much, but it's nice having a second one, and you get 2 Physic staffs early on, and having 2 Physic users can usually having 2 Physic users allows you to do some really kind of aggressive things in some of those early to mid game chapters, and it's really enjoyable that way. There's with 2 Physic users, at some point I'll show it, there's a really like aggressive strategy you can do with Ogmo or any like 13 speed, you know, swords person in like chapter 9 and stuff, and having 2 Physic users for that is nice, and it allows me to use a lot more units I like, because, you know, it kind of takes a Riss is like E rank staves, so I usually don't, you know, have him work on staff rank that much. But yeah, there's my tangents over. But basically basically, yeah, I think board is... Why am I talking about board? Yeah, why am I still talking about board? But yeah, I think board allows you... Board kind of is able to take that job that Wendell was assigned to, and board's like the only unit who can do it, really. He can do it as efficiently, and it just allows Wendell to get from D to C, which lets you do some fun stuff. So it's a really, really minor thing, but I think board should be given a little more credit for C rank axes. He's not the worst of the axe bros. People say he is, but he's not. Not by any stretch of the imagination. But Barst is better. I'll give him that. Who do you think is the strongest man in the continent? Asks Dr. Shaky Jones. There's no one else who would ask this question. So, obviously there is the man who has the title. And that would be Astrum, right? We all know Astrum is the strongest man in the continent. He's so strong, in fact, that he doesn't need stats to be strong, because the stats are awful. And he doesn't need those stats to be the strongest man in the continent. He doesn't need it at all. Because, you know, heads will roll and all that. But there is a contender for this. And I'm sure, Dr. Jones, you know who I'm talking about. There is the man called Death itself, known as Trude. And that kind of falls under the radar for a lot of people in Fire Emblem 5. But he, like, not even Galzus, a man who everyone would expect to have a title like that, has that going for him. No. Not Trude. Not Trude. Trude might be able to give Astrum a run for his money. Because, Trude has Nihil. And it means that Astrum cannot use his skill. The skill of saying heads will roll is gone to him. And then if that's the thing, if Astrum doesn't have that, like, what does he have? But he has Mercurius. So this theory will require further testing, I think. So, Dr. Jones, I'm going to have to get back to you on that. But I think Trude is a strong contender. After all, he is the man called Death itself. So, maybe he could dethrone Astrum for strongest man in the continent. Who is your second favorite after Board? That is an excellent question. Who's my second favorite unit after Board? So we're gonna say Jagan. In fact, Jagan used to be my favorite unit of all time before I really dug deep into the Board stuff, and I considered making him my profile picture, and I decided in the end not to do that because I know Don doesn't own Jagan, but like he basically does. Like even though I could do it and face no repercussions from making my profile picture Jagan. Like that's like Jagan is like the identity. That's like his identity. That's been his identity forever. And causing that kind of like confusion and splitting that identity is kind of annoying. Even like I don't know if Don even cares about that or not. Probably not. But still, I don't think I would never want to like cause that kind of confusion and split that identity. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. But yeah, Jagan is such a, and I think me and Fred talked about this a lot, but we just like old characters in general. Just like old men characters are so cool to me. I always use them. I always love them. You've probably seen a theme of that in my channel. I also like Lorenz for that reason. And for the color red, for your question earlier, I forgot to say that's probably another person I'd put is Lorenz. really silly unit, but not. And we're talking about Arcanea Lorenz, not Three Houses Lorenz. But yeah, I just realized I better mark these ones because I'm done. We'll have to come back to this one though. But yeah, that'd be Jagan. What other series do you tend to enjoy play aside from Fire Emblem? Asks Lil Gabbo. A lot. I've played a ton of games. I've played a ton of different games. I grew up with a lot of games. My family played games together a lot. My parents, I've said this to a few people, but believe it or not, my parents played my parents played RuneScape with us. My whole family. I have 3 other brothers, so there's 4 of us total. And my mom and dad, we all played RuneScape together. I haven't played RuneScape for a long time, and my mom was so funny. she did the classic mom stuff. She was such a high level in RuneScape, but she almost never did combat. She just loved like cutting down trees, fishing, like wood cutting, fire making, and she made us all this food and just loaded us up with like lobster and like really good food whenever we wanted to go into like dungeons stuff, or like go out into the wilderness and lose our rune armor to players, or to the cave full of revenants, like it. Anyway, if you know, you know. And my dad like plotted out a super efficient route that got him the most smithing XP and the most money, and he just did it. He just grinded it, and he got so much money. And so yeah, because my dad's smart. And yeah, we just all played, did our own thing. We did a lot of crazy stuff, really enjoyable. We all played, if anyone remembers Wizard 101, we all played Wizard 101 together for a bit too. And so my family's just played a variety of games. We played a ton of RTS growing up. My mom, to this day, still plays Age of Empires 1 sometimes. She'll just put the disc in on her laptop. I know discs are like foreign concepts now, but she put the disc in on her laptop and just boot that up and play. So I've had experience with a lot of stuff. We had all the Nintendo consoles and all the Xbox consoles, and we played all those PC games. So and I had the handhelds too. So basically the only thing that I didn't really grow up with was PlayStation. Sorry if I'm making you guys jealous, but I just had a fun. I just played a lot. So loads of RTSs. Age of Empires, Stronghold, Crusader, StarCraft, you name it, like all kinds of stuff. Played loads of Halo. I played loads of Gears of War. I mean, you guys probably know that. I've been doing that stuff on the channel. So just, yeah, lots of shooters, lots of Nintendo games, and just all the stuff. I will say, funnily enough, I don't play that many RPGs. That's kind of funny and ironic, I know, but I legitimately do not play that many RPGs. There's a few that I really love, though. So, like, but yeah, it's kind of hard to answer, like, what other series, because I play so much. I don't really have time to play games that aren't at Fire Emblem these days, because of, I want to, but school and work just kind of kick my butt. I just don't have a lot of time to. But some of my favorite games of all time are I'll give a shout out to the Ace Combat games. Those are PlayStation games, and I didn't grow up with PlayStation, but I got to play them later through the PC 9X or whatever it's called. And Ace Combat 0 is one of my favorite games of all time. I love that game. So much fun. And the story and stuff is really good too, and the gameplay is really solid. I like, what's it called? There's a lot of games. I'm just trying to remember which order. These are in no particular order. I love KOTOR 2 or Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2. That is an RPG, and it's one of if not my favorite RPG of all time. That game is so good. It has a really it's really fun to screw around in that game. Once you kind of understand the game, it's a bit easy. So you have to like you have to do some stuff to like challenge yourself if you wanna, you know, if you wanna do some stuff there. But it is a really fun game, and the story is really deep too. It really like goes into a lot of crazy themes not seen in Star Wars. If any of you like, if that sounds like interesting to any of you, it is a pretty old game. It's a really cheap and still fun game. It's still like in the visuals, there's a lot of charm to them despite the old graphics, especially like the choreography of combat. I recommend you play KOTOR 1 first. Really good game, love the game. Second one's my favorite, but I love the first one to death. So I would check those games out on Steam if that sounds interesting to any of you. The Knights of the Old Republic games, highly recommend them. They're just a little old, but I think they hold up today still. Total War Warhammer. I've been playing on the side. Me and my friends got a campaign going on Total War Warhammer 3. Before I came to college, I put over 2,000 hours into Total War Warhammer 2. Not kidding. That's what it shows on Steam. But yeah, I'm a bit of an addict, so yeah, not much to say there. I just love the game, and there's so much replayability, there's so much stuff you can do. Halo 2, I already talked about Halo a bit, but I just want to be specific for Halo and Gears of War. I love Halo 2, that's my favorite game. I've played every Halo, even like the newer ones, but Halo 2 as always, and I played them in order, and Halo 2 has always been my favorite. I've spent the most time in that game, and I just love it. I love the story, I love the gameplay, I love the spaghetti code of it. And yeah, I just love the game. And the music is one of my favorite soundtracks ever. Just like Gears of War 1, the original Gears of War has one of the best soundtracks ever, in my opinion, or it's one of my favorites, I guess, is a better thing to say. On the channel, I'm playing the remaster version of the first one. It's one of those games I played as a kid, and I played it alone with the lights off, and you know, it was really stressful, really scary, pretty hard because I put it on the harder difficulty because I was a masochist. Still am, but it was hard. It kind of scared me a bit because I was a kid, probably too young to be playing that game. But I made it through it, and I felt so accomplished beating that. And so I've had a really special connection to that game ever since. And it's just a lot of fun. It still holds up today, in my opinion. And what else? There's too many games I like, man. Sometimes I forget about games I really love, and then remember them later. And so we'll probably move on from, you know, this question for now. But yeah, I have a lot of favorite games. I have a lot of favorite games I just love and love and love. I'm an enjoyer of many things. So let's put the little goblin there. Ranking all of the boards, asks Dominique, or Dominique, I guess. Sorry about that. Okay. I know what I'm gonna say. So, at the top, we gotta go with FE7 board. We gotta go with Shadow Dragon board. Of course, like you guys knew what I was gonna say. This is Shadow Dragon board. He's the man. He's got like the most relevant utility out of any of them, and he's just fun. He's just really fun. The way like the mechanics of Shadow Dragon just make him a really fun unit, in my opinion. You know, he doesn't really that kind of uniqueness that he has. Like, so his role, kind of his in the DS games, his solidified identity is the weapon rank guy. The guy with a weapon rank. He's in both DS games. He's the only character with a base axe rank to use hammers at that point in the game. He is the hammer man. Like, hammers are his identity. Like, there's no other way to say it. He is the hammer guy. That one dude with a hammer. So, you know, and that's not a really crazy utility. That doesn't make him super good. But as a unit, he has that niche of being an early game hammer user, one that you don't just the only person at base. 'Cause like I said, you don't get your next base hammer user is Minerva in Shadow Dragon. And I forget who has base at least C. Is it Minerva in FE12 as well? What chapter? I don't remember what chapter the Kadane level is where you get her. I don't remember if you. I think you get Dice after that, right? I know Dice has C axes, and I think you get Dice after that. Stupid Dice. But I think it's the same. You don't get until you get Minerva and Kadane, right? You guys correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember any C rank axe users until then. So like, I mean, you can easily get someone to C rank axes before then, but you know, that's the point. The point is, no investment can use a hammer. Now his stats leave something to be desired, but still, he Board was given a distinguishable niche. Next is FE12. Again, just the mechanics. It's still worse. I don't like how they made him get slower over the course of time. Like here's the thing. You can't use. There's not really any excuse for it. The enemy stats are higher, and you get bored later. You get bored in Chapter 3 in that game instead of Chapter 2. Right? Pala, rather than Chapter 14, you get her in Chapter 3, and she has higher base stats than I think all but one unit in Shadow Dragon. Pala has higher base stats than any recruitable unit in Shadow Dragon, except for like Gato. Like, that is ridiculous. That's insanity, right? Like we all know that. We all know Pala's insane in that game. But it just goes to show you like the stat power creep. And then Board, my man loses speed. It doesn't stop me from using him. And his growths are actually a little bit higher. But still, it makes me really sad. Because even though his growth rates are higher, even though his growth rates are higher, up at that 30%, speed is more competitive in that game. It takes him a lot to not get doubled. Whereas, you know, he only has 10% in Shadow Dragon, but enemy speed scales really slowly. In fact, Cavaliers don't start doubling him until like the mid game. So like Chapter 12, like maybe through 14, they have the ability to roll 11 speed, which can double him at base speed. But then they don't get 12 speed till like Chapter like 16. So he's pretty free in that department. But yeah, I kind of like giving, like, even with the, yeah, long story short, even giving him from 10% speed growth to 30% speed growth, he still runs into this issue where the enemy speed scales way faster in that game. So I still have to say the Shadow Dragon version of him is probably better. As for like FE1 and FE3 book 1, like they do way better. The enemies are weaker, so you can make better use of them. They don't promote, so they're not as interesting. He's got like a 50% defense growth, which is kind of funny. But again, it's just one of those things. Like those early Kaga games, like 1 through 4 or 1 through 5, like all the Kaga games, you know, swords are really dominant. So like sword users are just gonna run over everything in those games, and they're just so much better. At least in FE5, with the addition of Con and some of the skills and other tools, they allowed Axe users to really succeed in that game. But in 1 and 3, they got problems. Luckily, unlike really early COG games and the DS games, they're really accurate. So I'd have to say I'll put FE1 board, and then as like the bottom tier, I'll put FE3 Book 1 board. So that's my opinion. That's kind of where I stand on that stuff. But yeah, that's how I rank the boards. Great question, by the way. Yeah, and I think that'll do it for now. Longer than I thought, longer than I wanted it to, but that's just kind of how we do things. So, yeah, join the Discord, link in the description. Ask me questions, join the community Iron Man, do all that stuff, and yeah, we'll be back later with some more. So, yeah, thanks for sticking around, and yeah, we'll see you again.